listening to Refracted World with Terry Geo, Episode 19, The Faceless. I have worried about writing and recording and releasing this episode for as long as I've thought about it, and I have kept myself back from doing it, but it got to the point where I feel I can't do that anymore. So, the story I'm about to tell you is based on an amalgamation of true accounts people I know, and possibly even yourself may have encountered. There is a trigger warning. This story may make you feel uneasy, unsafe, and unprepared, but I promise at the end of the episode you will have a better understanding of the serious nature of the problems raised, and will be armed with possible solutions for how we can stop these ever-increasing threats forever. The following story is fiction based on fact. For Sally's 40th birthday, she wanted a huge party, one all her friends and family could attend. Sally had grown up in poverty. Her mum had taken her own life when Sally was very young. She didn't remember her well, although she could sometimes unwillingly see her face, still, motionless, with cold, glassy eyes. Her father had done his best to raise her and her younger brother, but he struggled. With little money coming into the house, what was there was spent on the children first, and then everything else. As an adult, Sally openly discussed how her mother's death had affected her and had dedicated her life to helping others. She spoke openly online and in the real world, where she gave discussions to parents and children and to schools. She worked with many charities over the years, often as a volunteer, until her father's health declined, and now Sally had become his full-time carer. It didn't pay a great deal, but Sally had never known money and loved spending time with her frail, yet still full of life father. But her 40th birthday was a big milestone, and she wanted a celebration to match. Being a summer baby, she decided to host the party in her local park. It was behind her father's house, so he wouldn't be far away from home if he needed to leave at any time, and there was plenty of space for everyone, and it was free. It wasn't long until the happy day finally arrived. It was the end of July, and the sky was a deep blue, clear of clouds, and the sun was shining down on all the partygoers as they arrived. Everyone was so excited, but no one more than Sally. Her brother, who now worked overseas, had returned for the week along with his wife and their 3 children. Along with them were aunties, uncles, cousins, friends, and colleagues. Picnic hampers and blankets were placed on the ground. Sally's youngest cousin had brought a small sound system, and her uncles were setting up a volleyball net. Prosecco corks were popped in unison, and everyone was in high celebration mode. As Sally stood there, holding her glass and seeing all the most important people in her life in front of her, she smiled. The day was perfect. Later, while stood chatting with her closest friends, someone dressed entirely in black, disguising their identity, and with their face completely hidden by a black mask, moved behind Sally. "These aren't your friends. They hate you," the person said in a voice which was indistinguishable. Sally told them to go away, yet they didn't. They stayed right there, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear them. "No one wants you to be here. You should kill yourself like your mother did." Tears started to well in her eyes as her friends started shouting at the masked person. They told them to leave, but they didn't. They then started verbally abusing all of them. A few meters away, 2 other masked people were verbally abusing Sally's relatives, with one of them telling her father to hurry up and die. This was too much for Sally, who called the police, but she was told as it was a public place, there was nothing they could do. Over the next hour, more masked people arrived, joining in with the others as they verbally attacked everyone at the party. People were ridiculed for their age, sex, sexuality, finances, clothing, hair, facial features, and jobs. They were mimicked, made fun of, and repeatedly threatened, and yet no one could stop them, remove them, or identify them. It was only after one of them told Sally they know where she lived, and they would be waiting for her in her bedroom when she got home, that the 5th call to the police reluctantly got the officers to the park. Once there, all of the masked people were escorted out of the park and let go. "Why didn't you arrest them?" Sally asked. The police told her as they were in masks, they couldn't ascertain their identities, but they had made a note of their appearances and they wouldn't be able to enter the park again in those particular masks. "But does that mean they can simply change their masks and come back in?" Sally asked. The police officer simply nodded to confirm this and left the park. Everyone then packed up and proceeded to leave the park as well, knowing that the masked individuals could come back at any time. The party was ruined, and even though her family and friends tried to comfort her, that night Sally laid in her bed and cried. She ran through everything she had gone through in her life, everything she had done to help others, and realised none of it mattered. The masked ones would always be there, ruining not just hers, but everyone's life, and no one would do anything to stop them. What was the point in anything? How did that story make you feel? If you're feeling angry, that's probably the right response. Can you actually imagine if we allowed this to happen in the real world? Masked people taunting, abusing, and threatening anyone they want without ever having to disclose their identity, without any consequences whatsoever, and are able to do it again and again and again. Can you imagine if we actually lived in a world like that? But we do. We do live in that world, and we allow it to happen every single second of every day. I wrote this story as an allegory for what happens online. Every day, everything we post can be commented on by anyone in the world, and for the vast majority of us, if not all, something or everything we post will be attacked by faceless profiles. They use pseudonyms, they have no profile picture of themselves, or leave it blank, and they have no content of their own, or at least no content that shows their face. What they do have is a penchant for hate. The faceless get their kicks from kicking others. Whether you're a kid or a great-grandparent, to them all are fair game. And as they are hidden and protected, no matter what they do or say, they know nothing bad will ever happen to them. They can even send death threats, and the worst that will happen is that their blank, faceless profile will be banned. But then they can simply create a new profile and continue on as if nothing happened. Why do we allow this? We collectively spend more time socializing online than we do in the real world, and yet we don't allow anything like this in the real world. Behind every real profile is a real person with a real life, emotions, and feelings. Telling someone to kill themselves hits the same whether it's in a park or a private message. But not all profiles are real. We also live in a world where we allow bots, computer-generated profiles programmed by people and AI to infiltrate our online world. Want to sway an election? Here are 1 million bots to do your bidding. And how do they get away with this? Because we allow the faceless to exist and to interact with everyone without restriction. After almost 20 years of large-scale social media, the faceless have been prevalent from day one, and yet no one has ever done anything to address it, let alone combat it. Why? Why do we allow this to continue unchecked? We shouldn't, and I for one have had enough. The comeback you may hear many times is to stop being a snowflake or stop being soft. They're only words, they can't hurt you. But the people who say this have obviously never been on the receiving end, because words can very much hurt a person. Words have power. There's a reason we all know the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. Words can take down empires, spread false and misinformation, and destroy businesses and even people's lives. Now, 1 or 2 negative comments can be brushed aside and forgotten. But when you're getting hundreds and thousands of negative comments and even direct messages, it's impossible to block out. And in a world ruled by social media and algorithms, every creator knows that they must post at least once a day, and if they don't, their profile gets put back to the bottom of the stack. So they have to keep going, they have to keep pumping out content, and with that comes the deluge of comments. I have relatively hard skin. As an actor, you get used to rejection, and as an activist, you get used to negativity, believe me. Yet even I struggle with some of the responses I receive. I post a lot on social media. Working in entertainment, my job depends on it, and over the years, on almost everything I've posted, I've received negative comments of varying scales. It doesn't matter what the subject is, the faceless are protected. They can say anything without recourse, and they do. But it's not just me, it's everyone and everything. Scroll through anything online, and negative, hurtful comments and sometimes disgusting comments are likely to be there. You can do it right now. You can stop listening to this, or while you're listening to this, just go onto any post on social media that has quite a few views and look at the comment section. You will be amazed at how much negativity is in there. And for whoever has created that post, they read all of those. And they do affect you. Believe me, they really do. And the faceless know this, and that's why they continue doing it. In preparation for this episode, I screenshotted some of the responses from just a random scattering of videos online. ITV posted a video of a young woman who travelled to Turkey for a weight-reducing operation and sadly died through their negligence. The faceless responded en masse. Here are just a few of them. "We don't care, she basically committed suicide. Yeah, ain't there like a million gyms? Anything instead of exercise, should have went to the gym. You get what you pay for." The family accepted her laziness instead of telling her to get a grip and walk 20 minutes a day. "Oh, if she had a gym pass, she would be alive." "Just don't go to Mackey's." There were many, many more of these on just this thread, and maybe you agree with some of them. But without context, how can you agree? You don't know what led that young woman to have the operation, and instead of mourning her death, the family now have to wade through thousands of comments like this. And if they'd have actually watched the video and heard her mother talk about this, they would know that the reason that young woman had the operation was because of the hate and bullying she was getting online for being fat, and she couldn't reduce her weight fast enough, and this was the fastest option so she would become beautiful and accepted. And yet, even after she'd gone through all of that, spending all of her money to go to Turkey and died, still she was attacked. She couldn't win in life or in death. When Brianna Jai's killers were revealed, the amount of hate I saw online from the faceless was absolutely disgusting. The majority of them were defending her killers, saying things like, "Oh, they should be praised. I dislike Brianna as she was a scientific amalgamation," or "they should have not been jailed because they were doing God's work." This is absolutely abhorrent to me, and I cannot understand why anyone would think that, let alone write it down in a comment section of a video of a woman's death. And yet, we all know by now that it doesn't matter what they say or what they do, the faceless can get away with it because they are protected for some unknown reason. I'll just talk about one more video because I'm getting more and more angry. There was a baby girl in America who was sexually abused and murdered. And it was just talking about this on I think it was a newsreel. The top comment on that video was by one of the faceless. And they said, "We don't really know if she suffered. For all we know, it could have been really good." This particular thread continued for a while, with the responses getting much, much sicker and ridiculing those who were calling them out. I didn't screenshot these, I instead blocked the account as they were far too obscene. This is about a baby girl who was raped and murdered, and this person was having a field day explaining why they thought it was a good idea and why they thought it was good, and that they were right in their thinking. And you could see in their responses how much they enjoyed the disgruntled people and the anger and the frustration and the things they were saying, because they were getting so angry at this person, and they were loving it because that's why they continue doing it. They want you to engage. They want this conversation. That's why they post in the first place, to be seen, to be heard. And as I'm reading all of this, I knew this, and that's why I blocked them. Because for many years, I've known the best way to get rid of trolls is to block them and move on. But you could be blocking people forever, as they can make multiple accounts and just continue their trolling. And they do. I block several accounts every single day, And I'm not making a dent. None of us ever can. But this is currently the only tool we have at our disposal. And even though I know the best way to deal with the faceless is to block them, I sometimes see a comment and I feel I have to respond. I know I shouldn't, and I try not to, but sometimes I get so angry or frustrated or upset that I just have to say something. And that's what they want. They want us to respond so they can continue their campaign of hate. Their lives must be so boring and meaningless that this sick practice is how they actually get enjoyment out of life. It is so much easier to tear down someone else than to actually create a life for yourself. This is why they post, to engage, to enrage, to be seen and have some sort of interaction with other people. If it wasn't so devastating, we might even feel sorry for them. There was a video recently talking about how vibrant the gay scene is in Brighton, and someone commented, "Thanks for this, I'll never visit Brighton now." And I responded, "You won't be missed. I know I shouldn't have said anything, but as a gay man, I am emotionally linked to the LGBT plus community, and when I see things like this, I take it as a personal attack." They came back with, "Oh, also remind people not to let kids around you." Again, with the rhetoric that the LGBTQIA plus community are all paedophiles, when in reality it's almost always perpetrated by straight men and men in the religious industry. The third podcast I ever released is entitled Gender, and it talks about this subject in much more detail and comes with all the proof you could ever need. If you haven't listened to that one yet, please do. After that comment, I blocked the account, and I reported them to TikTok, as no one should be allowed to say these things. And the response from TikTok was, "No violation found. Everything I have ever submitted to them for review has come back with that. And I have submitted some horrific things." And here lies the problem. Faceless profiles can say anything without retribution. You can report them all you like, but nothing will ever happen to them. And for the few who are banned, they simply set up another profile and continue on. And I know I've said this before, but it bears repeating. This should be drilled into all of us, because we have universally accepted something which should never have been accepted in the first place. So why are we still allowing this to happen? I always try to be as positive as I can in my messaging. I like to inform in a cheery way. I believe in equality for all. I am respectful of everyone, and I like to think that carries through in all of my social media presence. And I'm not the only one. There are millions of people like me creating content the same way. Sure, everyone has their own views and sometimes agendas, but they don't go around making light of murder and child abuse. But the faceless do. And that brings us to the issue of freedom of speech. Surely anyone can say whatever they like in a free society, and to a certain degree, yes, we can. But there is a difference between freedom of speech and hate speech, and the two often get mixed together. Hate speech is a crime, but not online. It is not policed, and the faceless commit this crime millions of times a day. If you shout and intimidate someone and call them racist or LGBT plus slurs in the street, you will be arrested and you could face prison time. But that restriction doesn't apply online because, as we've discovered, there are no restrictions online. And yet words have the same impact whether spoken or written. Some might even say that the written word is much worse because it's premeditated. And that word can stay on your screen or on a profile forever, whereas a word will be said and vanish instantly. So what can we do to change this? No laws have ever been passed, no social media platform has ever stopped the creation of faceless profiles, and although policing of certain words may be flagged, we have thousands of words at our disposal, and the trolls know all of the workarounds. I have spent a long time thinking about this very problem, and I believe I have a solution. The faceless are not all trolls. Some people simply want anonymity. They don't want their face and personal information on show for everyone to see, and many don't want to create content. They just want to enjoy it. Therefore, banning all faceless profiles would affect all of these people as well, and that isn't fair. Therefore, my idea is not to ban any faceless profiles at all. but to restrict them. As a faceless profile, you would be able to watch and read everything online, but the faceless cannot interact with any posts. That means they can't comment, they can't like, they can't share. They just become viewers only. But surely they would just come up with a fake name and a fake stock image of themselves to try and get through that. Therefore, we need to put checks in place to stop that from happening. By now, we all understand how social media works. We all get free, unlimited access, and in exchange, our data is taken and used by companies and targeted ads are fed to us. That is how the platforms make their money without us having to spend any of our own, at least not directly. We could implement an ID check with the individual platforms for us to prove our name and our image is us. That would be the most efficient and effective way. But I know that proposing this from a previous video, some people don't want to give that amount of personal data to a social media platform. And I personally believe that we are way past that now, but I also understand the trepidation. So after giving it a lot of thought, here's my simpler and less intrusive idea. Let's say you want to join Threads, and we've brought in this new regulation that means that you can't just act unchecked anymore. But instead of giving all your personal details over to the social media company, you instead take a picture of yourself holding a piece of paper with your real name, your country, and your age on it, and also a time-limited code which the system will have given you so it can't be manipulated. So let's say the code is 12345, and you've got this code and you have 60 seconds to write it on the paper. You've already pre-written this information. So you write it at the bottom, you hold up the piece of paper with your face fully on view, you take the picture and then you submit it. You can specify if you want to use a different name on your account and if you want to add a picture of yourself or not. If not, your profile picture will display an icon that means you have been verified so people know that you're not a faceless. This keeps it vague. There's no date of birth, just your age. There's no address, just a country. But this is enough information to confirm who you are. Then, if this is approved by Threads, they keep your details on file along with your face, and that's tied to your one account. This way, if this person does break the rules that are reported and they are maybe given a certain amount of warnings, if they continue to break those rules, their account will be banned. And as their face is on file, they will not be able to open a new account again with Threads. What if you want more than one profile? Let's say you have one for business, one for pleasure, and one for personal stuff, one for family, whatever. I think most of us have more than one profile somewhere. Then the same would happen again. You would specify that it's your second profile, but your details would not change. You just get a new code, put that in, and then that would be tied to your new account as well. I know this isn't a foolproof way of stamping out the faceless and ensuring our safety, but I do believe it's a good option. Although I am totally up for discussions on this. If I'm wrong in my thinking, then please tell me, but give me suggestions. Don't just say, no, I don't like that, without any suggestions. I would love to hear your thoughts and for us to work out the best course of action. As I say, I've thought about this a lot, and I have not recorded this episode or even written this episode until I had a solution. There's no point pointing out how bad the faceless are and how bad trolling online is, because we all know that. What we need is a solution, and this is what I think is a very good solution to this problem. We just can't allow these people and these bots to continue on unchecked. We see stories all the time about how trolls destroyed people's lives, their livelihoods, and even made some people commit suicide from the hate they received online. And nothing is ever done to stop it from happening anywhere in the world. We need to act, and we need to act yesterday, but now we'll have to do. There is no reason we should live in fear from the faceless any longer. Cyberbullying is a huge problem, which affects, harms and destroys millions of lives, and yet, at least in the UK, it isn't a crime. We have Protection from Harassment Acts from 1997 and the Malicious Communication Act from 1988, both before the modern internet was born and decades before social media began. These are outdated laws which do not address the online world we all use as part of our everyday lives. This needs to change. I have wanted to talk about this issue for a very, very long time, but it was only recently I thought up this possible solution. But I can't do it alone. I really do need your help. I have very little power or influence. I'm just a guy who's quite good at writing. If you also feel like me and know we need to stop the Faceless in its current form, then please join me. Bring me your stories, your knowledge, your wisdom, your influence. The more of us who stand united, the more serious we will be taken. I imagine this may upset quite a few people. Not just the trolls who love to hate, but those who believe the internet shouldn't be policed. Others who have faceless profiles but are not trolls, and companies who use bots for whatever nefarious reason. To that I say, you've had 20 years of the Wild West, and too many people have taken their own lives, hurt themselves, been terrified, bullied, or caused irreparable harm by this. The majority of us want to be able to post a picture in loving memory of a child who has passed away without the fear of ridicule. We want the online world to be as safe as the real world, where a gay person or a black person or a disabled person can share a post about their lives and not receive hate and death threats. If social media is the equivalent of a toilet wall, we want to replace that wall with one that's made of glass. Thank you for listening today. I know it's been a heavy episode because it's been a heavy one for me to write and to speak. I don't know if you've noticed, but I have a cold. My nose is constantly blocked. I have stopped this episode more times than I've stopped any other because I keep having to blow my nose or drink or swallow or cough or something. So I apologise for the nasally talking today. And the reason I did it today is because I started the cold today. And the episode goes out on Friday. And if I don't do it today and I'm worse tomorrow, then you know what I mean. So I'm trying to do it now before my voice goes. It's been a lot. And I really hope that this episode comes across in the way it's meant to, which is I want to protect everybody. I want everyone to be able to live without fear, online and offline. And I've been an activist my whole life for offline, so let's do online now because I have seen some horrendous things over the past year and they just seem to be getting worse and no one is doing anything to combat it. And yet you can get the entire government in America to ban TikTok, but no one will talk about actually getting rid of faceless profiles who are harassing people to the point of them killing themselves. It's terrible. Thankfully, I believe in the power of people. I know the majority of us are amazing human beings, and the faceless just try to ruin it for all of us. But wherever we come together as a species, as a collective, and we put our minds together, we can achieve something beautiful. We can achieve anything. Just listen to my podcast from last week when I talked about the pyramids. Human beings are incredible, and we've always been incredible. That's why we evolved to the status we're at now. We come together over anything that's important and we can make radical changes for the better. And I really hope that's the case here. If you're wondering how you can help, I've actually created a petition with the UK government. You can sign it by going to the link in my description. The title is Ban Online Profiles Without a Person's Name/Image Unless Verified. It's a bit of a clunky title, but it seems to be the way with petitions on there. If we can get 100,000 signatures, which is a ridiculous amount of people I need to get to, I don't know how many people this is going to reach, but if we can get 100,000 signatures, the petition will be seen and discussed in the Houses of Parliament. And this is something that the majority of the population of the world would benefit from. So if you're listening to this and you agree with what I've said and you want more people to sign the petition, please send this podcast or just send the petition and ask them to sign it, because I think most of us would want this. But this is only a start. We need to do more, much more, to raise awareness and to get more people on board to help. So if you have any suggestions or ways you can help, please get in touch. I'm just one person with a voice and a good writing ability, but that's it. I mean, I don't really have any contacts or anything, but maybe you do. And maybe you have ideas of where it could go. So if you can help, please get in touch. I am everywhere on social media as either Terry Geo or RefractedWorld, all one word. I've also designed a t-shirt especially for this episode with the message "Face the Faceless" written on it. The link for my store is also in the description, but please, whenever you buy anything from my store, use the code podcast20. It gives you 20% off everything that's there, and it means that everything's more affordable. I'm using an American supplier. The quality is really good, but the cost of postage is quite high because obviously it's coming from America. So I now know how much I earn because people have been buying t-shirts from the store, and with the code I earn 52p per t-shirt. So I'm not getting any money from it really, but I just think that it's a good cause. And if you like the t-shirt, you might not even like the t-shirt, but there are other designs on there that I've made, and there's a lot of Refracted World merch on there as well. And just take a look. If something takes your fancy, pop the code in, see how much it is, and if you can afford it, then get it. And I'm wearing one of the t-shirts now. They are really good quality. And yeah, but if you don't want to buy anything, you don't have to. You can keep listening to this. And I'll be continuing this conversation on Refracted World Plus, which is available to all paid subscribers. But don't worry if you don't want to spend any money at all. I am just happy you're here, and thank you for listening today. And yeah, if you can help in any way, please do. If you could sign the petition, that would be a great help. And yeah, I'll be back next week, so I hope you join me then. Until then, take care everyone, and goodbye.